I've got the winners as just the AFL in general. It's awesome to have the footy back. And
so they could easily be 4-1 going into round 6, which, like, I'm not saying they're going to make the top 8, but all of a sudden they can be someone that's a bit of a smoky for that 8th spot. Because
to be booed his first touch like that in front of the home crowd, it was absolutely disgraceful from Collingwood fans.
The other one is GWS to beat Fremantle. I'm a big fan of Fremantle this year. I think they're going to be a good team, but I can't really get out of the mindset that GWS are a good team. I'm not really accepting that they're bad yet.
It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! Balotelli! Aguero!
Hello and welcome back to the On Ball podcast. This is episode 114 of the show, and today we are once again joined by Rowey. How are you, mate?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty well. We're up nice and early today, which is good. Getting the day off to a good start, talking about the footy. So as I just preluded to, we will be doing a AFL round 1 review. We'll talk a little bit about round 2 at the back end of the episode, but it's more a round 1 review. We're going to do this weekly, probably get a few different guests on, try and do them in person as well, so we can have some nice chats. But today it's just me and Rowey online, and we're just going to talk some dribble. And did you watch much footy on the weekend?
I watched as much as I could. Tied up with a few grand finals in cricket, but managed to watch as much as I could. Off for rain, quickly chuck on KO in the rooms and get up as much of North Melbourne, Port Adelaide as I could. But no, I watched a fair bit. Definitely enough to get my excitement levels back. Yeah,
if you had to pick a game of the week, which one are you going with?
Oh, I loved the end. I loved this third quarter onwards of Hawthorn Essendon. I would have also had to have said Adelaide Geelong if I watched it, but I saw the highlights and that was enough for me to sell me. So I'd probably have to say those two.
Yeah, the Adelaide game looked good. So we're just going to quickly discuss the winners and losers coming out of the weekend, and may as well go straight into that. My first winner, probably on your list as well, I've got the Adelaide Crows, and in particular Taylor Walker and obviously the coach Matty Nix. They're in actual solid form. They've won like 4 of their last 5, I think now, including the back end of last year. They beat the Geelong Cats at the Adelaide Oval, and they won by 12, but for most of the game they had a bigger lead than that. It was a little bit of a late comeback by Geelong. I think they were up by like 6 goals or something at half time, which was pretty crazy. But yeah, the Tex just went off his nut for some reason. He had the most contested possessions on the ground of any player, and this is like playing centre half forward or whatever. He's kicked 5, which is pretty handy. 12 score involvements, and deservedly picked up the 10 coaches' votes. So pretty perfect start to the year for the Tex. What did you think of this game?
This game, it was a real leader's performance from Tex. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, he was Danger that knocked out Jay Kelly, and after that whole sort of 5-minute break or so, Tex had the free that was downfield and led the way by banging it from 50. So he also kicked one then on the siren as well. It was a real captain's performance. He also clunked 9 marks and really led the way. From what I could tell from the highlights, obviously there's a massive mismatch in skills between the Crows and the Cats, but the Crows knew that they had to find something and be superior at something, and they've just come out so ferociously, intensity with their tackles and everything. There's a couple of highlights on the AFL website that shows the Crows absolutely ambushing Geelong, forcing them back in the play, and it just looked awesome to watch, especially in front of their crowd at the Adelaide Oval, which I think I kind of alluded to at the 2020 season review, that if the Crows can sort of get that crowd behind them at Adelaide Oval, they can really use that as a weapon. So I think they did that perfectly on the weekend and knocked off arguably the best prepared team in the comp.
Yeah, they look like they're almost copying a little bit of like the Richmond Port Adelaide method of success. Not too many big name players, a lot of rookies, but just going hell for leather on the pressure and stuff like that, which seems to be the method that is most suitable to the way the game's going at the moment. Some other guys probably worth shouting out. Jordan Butts, he played on the Tomahawk and he kept him to 2 goals, which is pretty incredible for a second-year player. I think he's only played 3 games or something. He does face Buddy this weekend, so that will be another stern test. He's not had an easy start to 2021. But if he keeps Tomahawk to 2 goals, I can't see why he can't keep Buddy to limited touches as well. I thought Ben Keys was also really good. I'm doing my votes again, my controversial votes for the Brownlow once again. He actually picked up the 5 votes ahead of the Tex.
Okay. Ahead of him?
Yeah, I think he had the most clearances on the ground. And I don't know, Ben Keys is one of those players. Every time, like, I'll be honest, I haven't watched Adelaide that much in the last 12 months, but every time I do watch them, he seems to stand out and always be have a big impact on the game. So I think he's
stands out with his bleach blonde hair. That's probably it.
Exactly. looks like an emperor penguin. But on the other side of that coin, we probably should touch on Geelong. Do you think this is a worry for Geelong, or just round 1 doesn't matter?
Yeah, I mean, it could be. It shows that they can get jumped by a side that's more prepared going into a game. I think, Aussie very. They knew that they were coming in against the worst team in the comp, and they had just, landed 3 big off-season recruits. So, it's a tough one. They do sort of rely a lot more on their sort of slow ball movement and using their skills a lot more, Geelong. So a team like Adelaide that does have that drive and energy going into matches that can really dismantle Geelong's tactics in a way. So, I guess they probably did get found out a little bit on the weekend. So I guess teams like Richmond and stuff will know how to beat them. Obviously, Richmond know how to beat them, but I guess the lower end teams like Port Adelaide stuff, they really know how to they'll know how to dismantle this Geelong attack, which on paper looks formidable, but on the weekend looks shell shocked. So, hopefully it makes for a much more even season between these top and bottom teams.
Yeah, Danger's obviously going to be missing a few weeks through suspension. What did you make of that suspension, by the way? He's come out and said that he was defending himself, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. What do you think?
Well, purely for my super coach, I hope he doesn't, but I think he's going to be gone. Look, he said he's come out to defend himself, so I thought, okay, I hadn't seen the bump close up on slow-mo multiple times. I'd only sort of glanced at it once. You see Jay Kelly dispose of the ball. You see Danger, instead of, because, when there's a collision happening, you sort of want to shy away from it. But you see Danger launch with his foot straight into, and I know the thing that caused the concussion was the head clash. It wasn't shoulder hitting head; it was a head clash. But that being said, Danger literally leapt into Kelly. So I think that the whole argument for Dangerfield is that he didn't elect to bump, and if he can persuade the tribunal of that, then he might have a case. But if they literally just look at the vision and look at Dangerfield's leg as it propels into Kelly, I think it's going to be a pretty quick hearing.
Yeah, I think he's going to get a couple weeks. I know the impact was the head, but still, he elected to bump. There's no question about that. He left the ground as well, which is it wasn't if he just tucked in and just held his ground. He full, as you said, launched at him. So I don't think he's. Good luck to him and his lawyers or whoever defends them in the tribunal, because I don't think they're going to have much luck.
He hasn't covered his head either. If it's going into that, you want to protect yourself. You might sort of go like that, which obviously would probably collect him with his elbow, but at the same time, he's fully expecting to get in with the bottom end of the shoulder.
The only thing with those ones is that if the player doesn't get knocked out, he probably doesn't get suspended, which is always a tough one. But I think he should be gone. Mcgraw also got subbed off with a shoulder injury. I think he's going to be okay. Once again, he's in my Supercoach team, so I hope he's fine. But that was also another negative coming out of it. I don't think it's time to panic just yet. I think it's a little bit concerning that they got destroyed by the Tex, because the Tex hasn't destroyed many defenses in recent times. But obviously this isn't a common thing, but because I do follow NRL and AFL, I'll do some cross-code comparison here. The Roosters, they're very similar to Geelong, a very mature team. Each year they come out and they look crap in the first month. They usually drop a few games and they're always there come September. So maybe Geelong's going for a bit more of that approach this year, rather than being one of the form teams during the regular season and running out of steam at the end. So maybe that's something they're trying. But I don't think it's time to panic. They've still got Jeremy Cameron and stuff to come back. So I think it's just a good win by Adelaide, to be honest. Other winners, mate? Who else are you looking at here?
Well, look, I've got. I don't really have teams. I've got more so, the crowd's back, the intensity up. My multis are getting up. I've got the winners is just the AFL in general. It's awesome to have the footy back, and I know they've just about announced, I think, 75% capacity at the crowds now for round 2, and it just keeps getting better. So, I've got, I think, 6 or 7 winners here on my list, but yeah, I think it's just the AFL in general, because I think there's no better way for it to have come back on the weekend than the way it did. There was upsets galore. There was controversy. There was everything. But yeah, if I have to narrow it down, it would be to sort of Adelaide, Hawthorn and Sydney all winning, who we all predicted to be in the bottom 4. So I thought for those guys to come out and upset the teams that they did, I think it was huge for the AFL to show that, round 1's always full of upsets, but to show that they are not going to get walked over this season without a fight. And yeah, it was awesome, especially for Sydney, knocking over Brisbane by like 10 goals or something, and their young guns absolutely tearing a really classy Brisbane outfit apart. So I thought that was really good. But yeah, it's just awesome to have footy back.
Yeah, I actually completely agree. I didn't watch too much of it on the weekend, but I went through last night and watched like the mini match of every game, which is I love that from KO just quietly. The mini matches are unreal.
Taken up off the sports. Don't off the sport do that?
Yeah, they
actually 15-minute mini match.
Yeah, they've taken that from
something like
working
that.
well. Yeah. But yeah, I completely agree. All the games looked really high paced, high intensity. Like that Adelaide Geelong game we talked about, that looked so intense. Every time someone got the ball, they were just about pounced on.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably the only negative coming out of the weekend was Matt Rowell's injury, I'd have to say.
Yeah.
That's obviously a huge shame. That was going to be one of the most interesting stories to watch, really, of 2021, whether he can back up what he showed early last year and do it for a whole 9 months or whatever. But sadly, we're not going to see that till maybe round 5 or 6. Not sure how long he's out for. They don't think it's as bad as it looked, but yeah, we'll see. But yeah, as you mentioned, Sydney, they had an unreal win against the Lions. And I'll tell you what, the next 4, they've got Adelaide, then they've got Essendon, and then they have a tough one against Richmond, but then they've got GWS at home. So they could easily be 4-1 going into round 6, which, like, I'm not saying they're going to make the top 8, but all of a sudden they can be someone that's a bit of a smoky for that 8th spot, because I remember from our predictions episode that 8th spot was always a little bit shaky for all of us. We weren't too sure who was going to step up and take it, so that could all of a sudden be theirs. And something I enjoyed from Horse, really, is that they had no Buddy. Kennedy and Parker, I don't think, had too much impact on the game. They were obviously pretty good as usual, but they weren't like dominant. But it was the other guys that stood up. McDonald, Campbell and Goulden all had unreal debuts. Rowbottom had a really good game. He picked up my 5 votes in my Brownlow. And Tom Hickey, the pickup in the Mcgraw, he actually had a pretty good game. He's turned into a journeyman.
How about that?
Yeah, I know. He's keeping Cal Sinclair out of the side. They had a pretty impressive win. And then another team I was going to mention is Melbourne. I actually thought their win over Freo, it's probably to be expected because they are a team that's looking to push for top 8. But I think Freo is one of those teams where if you want to be there at finals, you've got to beat them. But they're also a team that can, sort the men from the boys sort of situation. They can upset a few teams who are looking to be contenders, but they're just pretenders. So I think that was a good dispatching by Melbourne to not slip up there. They do face St Kilda, GWS and Geelong in the upcoming 3 weeks. So it's going to be tough for them to get any results out of those 3. So it was a really important win for them. So they weren't 0-4 to start the season. And then just special shout out to May and Lever, who I think were awesome. They both had the most intercept and contested marks on the ground. So they're forming a bit of a formidable partnership down back. But yeah, anyone else you want to mention, or do you want to touch on a few losers?
I've got for the winners. No, that you've covered it all perfectly. Those mentions of Goulden, Campbell, and McDonald remind me a lot of 2 years ago with Butters Dersmer and Connor Rosie. So yeah, that's awesome shades of what's to come. Goulden obviously picked up the Rising Star nomination, and Zach Butters look alike. He looks unreal on the field. But But yeah, I'm keen to touch on a couple of losers actually, because as good as the start of the season was, I've got a couple that I want to address.
Yeah, right. Who are you looking at here first? Can we avoid the Bombers, or is there someone else you want to get mad at?
I'm avoiding the Bombers because I for some reason, I don't know, I hated both teams. I hate Hawks and Bombers, but for some reason I just barracked for Hawks for the comeback, and it was great to see the Bombers choke it. But anyway, so first of all, I want to pay my respects to Rowey and Alex Pearce actually as well, who went sort of under the radar. He's had absolutely shocking luck with injuries, and then obviously went down again on the weekend. At his best, he's an All-Australian defender, but we've barely even seen that, unfortunately. So pay my respects to those two. One of the big losers was Collingwood. Now, I've had a reality check. I've taken them out of my top 8. They were 8th in that sort of shaky, flaky position, as we mentioned before, but I've taken them out, so we'll address that later. But it's the same old woes. I realise they still don't have a forward line. So first of all, they kicked out Chalor. Chalor's come back and he's delivered an awesome lace-out kick to Norton with his first touch. And I've actually, it's the first time I've been on Chalor's side. No, sorry, that's the wrong way of putting it. I'm neutral with Chalor, as most players in the competition, but like I've sided with him here. He's been booed by his first touch. He's been booed by the crowd. Now he's gone through a shocking off season. He's probably suffered tons of mental health issues, anxiety, and all that in his departure of Collingwood. He loved the club and got kicked out, and it was just a shocking list management. And to get booed by Collingwood fans with his first touch, when that place was his home, he declared he was never leaving. He's a Magpie at heart, probably still is. To be booed his first touch like that in front of the home crowd, it was absolutely disgraceful from Collingwood fans. And I'm saying that right into the camera because that was an absolute shocking act from anyone that booed him. I've never really looked into too much of the situation, but to hear that, I'm so glad that the Dogs won that, because I was not having Collingwood win that after the treatment they gave him with his first touch. And I know it was only one touch, and I know a few people probably booed him during the game, but that to me was just shocking. I'm all for booing past players and all that, but in the situation and the way that Chalor had to leave the Dogs, this was one where Collingwood fans just for once just be a bit human. But anyway, and also to see Jaden Stephenson kill it for North Melbourne. Sorry, over 30 touches. Was on fire for North. I know they still got beaten by like 50 odd points, but really does come back to bite Collingwood in the arse, and well deserved. So they were obviously, wasted him up there. I know he was happy at the Pies, but it was awesome to see him come out and absolutely fire in the position that he will probably play for the rest of his career now at North. So that's going to be my losers. So Collingwood fans, get that one up here.
Yeah, well said. I don't have too many losers written down in depth. Obviously, touched on Geelong before. Essendon, I think, were one of the biggest losers. Not because they, I don't think they played awfully. Just it was a game they could have won. Yeah. Obviously, they were up like 5 or 6 goals, and then the Hawks just kicked 6 or 7 straight or something like that to come back and win. And I was just having a look at their schedule, and it's looking pretty grim for the Bombers. They've got Port Adelaide, then they've got St Kilda, then they've got Sydney in Sydney, which is starting to look like a hard match. Then they've got Richmond, and then they've got Collingwood. So they could easily be 0-5 heading into that Collingwood Anzac Day clash. So I'm already predicting it basically. I think the Essendon fans will be losing the plot come round 5, round 6. So you got to feel for the Bombers fans in particular, but actually not really. Who cares about them?
It's a direct rivalry to St Kilda. I am all for it. It's great to see it. What more can you say? They were up by 40 points and absolutely choked it. I love screaming Cozzy every time the ball went into the Hawthorn forward line. It's been a while, but it just seemed as though Essendon just pushed it every time. Jai Caldwell looks like a gun, but every single kick that I watched, he absolutely torched it. So, it's a bit of a shining light on the fact that we didn't manage to get him, but go Hawks. Yeah.
And another team in a similar situation, I don't think we need to worry too much about that loss, but it's the Brisbane Lions. They now face Geelong in Geelong, and they're likely going to be 0-2 unless you think they're going to upset Geelong at the Cattery. So that's not an ideal start for a premiership contender to be 0-2, especially including a game against Sydney. So I think they'll be fine in the long run. Obviously, the same as Geelong. I don't think we can read too much into these round one results, but not ideal starts for some of these teams. Anyone else you want to mention, or do we want to move on to your top 8?
No, I think you've covered it all there. There's the two great matchups are Geelong Brisbane this week after two really disappointing matches from them on the weekend, and then Adelaide Sydney, two awesome performances. So I don't know if that's even scripted or not, but that was what better way to kick off the week there with Carlton Collingwood on Thursday night and then Geelong Brisbane Friday night. So it's going to be awesome.
All right, so this is a segment we started on the NFL podcast, and we've brought it over to the NRL and AFL podcast. So what we do is we just have a rolling top 8 bracket through the whole season. So each week we talk about our changes. That you can have no changes if you want, and we're going to do the guess for the AFL. I won't do my own top 8. So we're going to start with your, last week's top 8 and see how the weekend has changed your views. So I'll just quickly run through your top 8 from the predictions episode, or what we think it was anyway. Geelong first, Port Adelaide second, Richmond third, Brisbane fourth, St Kilda fifth, the Dogs in sixth, Carlton seventh. I forgot that spicy call from you, and Collingwood in 8th. So do you have any changes to that this weekend, or?
Yes, so I've left 1 to 6 untouched, and the bottom of my ladder I've left 12 to 18 untouched. But a bit like the Veronicas there. But I've put up West Coast up into 7th. I know I was really sort of hard on them on the off season, just given I think their list is aging and stuff. But then I saw Oscar Allen, who's going to be the new forward line, along with Liam Ryan. So they're not obviously at all going to fold over or anything. They've got Tim Kelly turned it up in the midfield, and their defence looked awesome, especially with Tom Barrass. So I've got them up at 7th. I've got Carlton shift down to 8th. I've still got them making it. I've got Freo. Well, I know this is only a top 10, 8. Well, I'll go down to 11 where I've made changes. Freo can stay at 9. Melbourne come up 1 spot to 10th. And I've got Collingwood slipping all the way down to 11th because just not a fan. Their forward line just is not existent. Their midfield looked really shaky. Taylor Adams played a really just not promising game. And Pendlebury, I haven't seen Pendlebury look the way he did like that in forever. He caused a few turnovers, dropped a few marks, a few free kicks against, and looked a bit slow. So, I've got him sliding.
Yep. So you're not concerned by Geelong or Brisbane? Just think it was a one-off?
Yeah, not yet. I think the talent on Geelong's list is too good. They will obviously overcome the sort of things that Adelaide found out about them. It's a football club. They're a professional club. They're obviously not going to just say, well, let's hope this doesn't happen again. They're going to find ways to, make sure that doesn't happen again. And with the talent they've got, I'm not worrying yet. Brisbane, on the other hand, yes, they were in 4th. I'm still keeping them there. They're still there, more to the fact that I don't see anyone else below them pushing into the top 4 just yet. I don't see St Kilda as much as I'd love to. I don't see them pushing into the top 4 just yet. Same with the Bulldogs or West Coast or anyone. So I'm going to keep that all untouched.
All right, next up, we have our players of the week. I've split it up into positional groups. So we've got a backs of the week, midfielders of the week, ruck of the week, forwards of the week, and a rookie of the week. Feel free to name as many as you want, Rowey. So we'll let you start us off, mate. You can just run through your players, basically.
Players, or are we starting with the positions?
We'll go position by position. So backs of the week or back of the week. Who have you got?
Sounds good. I've got there was a lot of good defenders this week. I've got Darcy Moore actually sitting at 1. So he climbed 6 contested marks, 9 intercepts. Thought he was awesome. I did watch that game. He really sort of led the way down back for Collingwood. And he's such a quality player. You expect no less from him. And then, it's really hard because there's a lot of these sort of intercept key position defenders that were awesome on the weekend. I've got Jake Lever sitting at 2, 12 intercepts, enough said. Stephen May at 3. Those guys really worked in tandem. They had a lot of chemistry between them, I think. He also had 24 disposals. So for a key position player like him to really sort of lead the way from the back and distribute the ball up the field, it was really good from someone like him. yeah, I'm going to start probably chucking him in a few multis if they keep on using the way that they do. So he was awesome. A couple of honourable mentions. Tom Barrass, I think, was awesome. Tried to fit him in, but just couldn't. And the fact that they were up against Gold Coast, a slightly weaker side, and you got a few cheapies in the end in terms of marks. Noah Bolter, I thought, was awesome, especially early on the game for Carlton and Richmond. He was really good down back. Looked like an absolute animal. His athletic ability as well for someone of his height is just freakish as well. My mate who I play cricket with, Cameron Watts, umpires a lot and said that he was the worst person to umpire because he just is an absolute, I won't say it, but just doesn't agree with any decision that you have to make or anything like that. So I'm glad we could just have to watch him and not have to hear him. But yeah, I've got him in there as an honourable mention. Shannon Hearn, I thought, was also good as well. Looks like he's 60 years old, but plays still like he's within playing age. So I thought he was awesome too.
Yeah, I agree with you with Darcy Moore. He was my back of the week. Most contested marks in the AFL, most intercept marks in the AFL across the round. So what's not to love about that? I don't get how Darcy Moore's not rated as like one of the best defenders in the competition at this point. Every time I watch Collingwood, he seems to be in the top 3 best players on the ground, really.
Yeah.
I think he's an absolute weapon. He's so good at positioning himself for those intercept marks.
Yeah.
Stephen May, as you mentioned, he's my number 2. And this is a bit of a pod, but my number 3 is Ryan Burton. I'm actually unsure how he's popped up in my voting system, Ryan Burton, but
let me know how, because I don't know how.
He had 4 intercept marks and he had 7 rebound 50s. So,
okay.
I don't know too much about how else he went, but he was up there in the votes for Port for me. So I don't know. I was talking to Pilch, went to the game. I was talking to Pilch. He said he didn't really notice him. So, but you never know. Oh, well.
It's always good to throw in a curveball.
Yeah, well,
Jack Bowes as well. I think he had like 30 touches. He
had 28 effective kicks, which is like unheard of. He sunk me in our Supercoach draft actually.
Hey? Did you get it?
No, I was playing against him and I needed him to get like under 50 to win or something. And he scored like 140. So All right, midfield, mate. Who are you looking at here?
Well, you can't really go past Dusty. 31 touches, 2 goals, and we're just doing Dusty things. Fend-offs are still working a treat. No one's really found a way of stopping that from him. So Dusty at 1. Baz Lenker at 2, 36 touches, 8 marks, 2 goals. It seems as though the only person that's been able to tackle him in his playing career was me back in year 9. So when I picked up for holding the ball. So, yeah, he was an absolute animal. Amongst that midfield of, Bont, McRae, Dunkley, Libber, he seemed to be the best, and he's, 20, 21 years old. So thought he was awesome. Tim Kelly as well, I think at 3 was awesome for the Eagles, led the way in the midfield. Shows that, it proved me wrong, shows that the list isn't really aging. 28 touches, also had 13 score involvements, which is an AFL high. It just shows how damaging he is and why the Eagles paid that much for him, because they do really need that type of player, I think, in the midfield. Had a lot of slow sort of midfielders in the past. They've had that Matt Pritis era. Jack Redden come in and, hasn't done a whole, he isn't much of a damaging player. They've got Elliot Yeo, but he's a yo-yo and he's inconsistent and in and out of the team half the time. So I thought he was awesome for the Eagles and one of the main reasons they got up. Tom Mitchell as well is an honourable mention I've got in there. And I'd like to say Hunter Clark as well, because he looked like Pendles in the wet in Sydney. So hopefully I can get him in at number 1 spot, number 1 mid of the week in the weeks to come.
I'm sure you will be able to. I've actually gone 3 different players, so a bit interesting.
Wow,
number one, I've gone with Andrew Mcgraw.
Yes.
He had, I've basically just written down 1 stat for each player, just to not going to write down their whole stat sheet because you guys will be here for days. But yeah, he had the most tackles in the comp. He had 11 tackles. But that's pretty handy. He was a big reason why Essendon went up to such an early lead. Him and Shield really exploded in the first half. Dom Sheed, him, Tim Kelly, and Nick Nat really were the reason why West Coast comfortably won that game, I think. He had 644 metres gained, which is quite a lot for a midfielder. Usually like the halfback flankers rack up those because they've got, they're just banging it down the line. He also had the most clearances in the AFL on the weekend. And third, by the way, I've considered Dusty a forward just for this because I didn't really know which other forwards to pick. But I've gone Jack Graham. I think he was Richmond's next best player. He had the most inside 50s on the weekend of any player in the competition, which is something we probably don't think of Jack Graham as being good at, but he had 836 metres gained, which was also the most in the AFL, so he was pretty good. Usually he's just a bit of like a tackling machine, but he looks like he might be taking the next step this year. So great start to the season by those guys. Ruck of the week, do you have the great man Matty Flynn? Or?
I don't have Matt Flynn because I've got someone even better, a bigger cult hero, Tom Hickey.
Yeah,
how about this? 23 touches, 24 hitouts, and the weirdest looking pill in the AFL, but he was awesome. I'm as sort of hard as it was to have him on my team at St Kilda. I love to see him succeeding at Sydney, or at least for this week. So hopefully he stays as the number one ruck all year because he was awesome. I've got Matty Flynn in as an honourable mention because he was up against Paul Hunter, who managed to rank, I think, like 19th in the AFL in the ruckman. Given there's 18 teams, I'll let you figure that one out for yourself. And the fact that it was really, really wet in the St Kilda GWS game, there's a lot of sort of stoppages and stuff, which I think also affected, the scores of Gawn and Grundy a bit. If they were playing up there, they would have had probably similar scores to Flynn. So I've got Tom Hickey. Never thought I'd say it. I've got Tom Hickey as my number one ruck for the week.
Fair play, well deserved. Yeah, I've gone Matty Flynn. I can't lie, I didn't really take into account opposition. It's probably a fair point from you. He had the third most hit-outs to advantage in the competition. He had 5 score launches, which is always a pretty key stat for ruckman. It's not really one that's too visible on many like apps or anything, but you can see it in the stats part of the AFL website. That's basically like they've just set up a scoring opportunity from a ruck tap. So I think they're pretty crucial. He was really good around the ground as well, had a lot of clearances, a lot of contested possessions. So he looked really good in his debut, I believe it was. So he's also my rookie of the week, but we'll touch on that later. All right, forwards of the week. I found this one a bit tough, if I'm honest, because I have to say I went off my voting system and it hates forwards, absolutely hates them. So I struggled here, but who have you got?
I've got, you can't go past Tex as the number one forward. He was awesome. Just led the way in the attack. Without, they wouldn't have won. 18 disposals, clunked 7, and kicked 5. It was absolutely awesome up front for them. Played like he was, 5 years younger and put all his sort of okay-ish years behind him. And number 2, I had these next 2 players in a multi. It was paying like $58, and the one that was paying $13 odds got up. So my second forward is Fantasia. So he kicked 4 goals for. His forecraft was unbelievable. I was watching a clip of him last night. The way he was able to sort of not dawdle around the ball as the ball's about 80, 90 metres from goal, the way he was able to sort of push back, make space for someone to run into or for him to then take advantage of was awesome. It showed his forecraft knowledge is really superior to that, to others. I think they compared it to Mason Cox, who did sort of dawdle around, and they showed just a big difference in class there. So I've got him, and I've got Oscar Allen as number 3. So he kicked 4, took 9, much against what I wanted, because I had Fantasia as most goals Group 1 in the Port Adelaide match in the 2-leg multi and ended up kicking 4. So I thought, here we go. I chucked on like $2.58 because my Sportsbet account was $42.58. So you've got to, even it out, chuck it on something wild. So I did. So I put Fantasia most goals, and then I did Jack Darling most goals in the West Coast game. So I could have cashed out at $30 after the North game. I thought, let's ride it for $150, but didn't get up. But Oscar Allen was awesome. As much as I was just praying that he missed every single set shot or every single mark, he did take them and did kick them. So I've got to give it to him there. So, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I've got the text first. And, I picked Dusty as a forward, so he was my number 2. I didn't even have a number 3. Probably should change my voting system because, Fantasia looked like he had a really good game from the highlights. What was going on with forwards just like playing on and kicking it from 45 this week?
Or playing on from 5 metres out and then butchering it like
I think Membry might have done it, or like just not they've just burnt people. Like there was so many easy options. I think Membry did one, Tex did one, Fantasia did one, where it was like, why have they just shot there? But they kicked it, so you can't really complain.
I did notice that actually. Come to think, I know. I remember watching the Saints game, and Membry's. We've got a whole bar of the cricket club who for some reason all support St Kilda. Membry's lining up from 50 on an angle, and you've got like two players in the setup by themselves. I'm like, Membry, what are you doing? And I wasn't even celebrating when he kicked. I thought, oh my God. But I saw Fantasia did it as well. You usually think it's more of like a debutant thing where they just have shots to get their first one off. I think Anthony Scott did it for the Dogs as well a couple of times. But I don't know. I mean, it proves for some good goals and some gutsy goals. But I tell you what, when they miss, you know that they're going to be copping a spray. So, hey ho.
Yeah, and this is completely non-statistically based, but Billy Frampton, if you just watch the Adelaide Geelong highlights, you would guess he kicked 7. He was just clunking everything. He only kicked 2. I think he kicked 2 behinds as well, but he looked like he had a pretty big impact on the game with his clean hands. All right, Rookie of the Week. We were talking about this last night. I said Rising Star rules, and then I realised Matty Flynn, I think, is too old for that. So I changed them because why not? So I'm just going less than 10 games, but I don't think that changed your answer. So who have you got for Rookie of the Week?
I've got Errol. Errol Goulden was unbelievable. 19 touches, 10 marks, 3 goals. I tell you what, I watched the highlights of him because I didn't obviously see the whole game. I was watching the Essendon and Hawthorn, but every single kick he laced out. It looks like he's been playing the game for 5-10 years, and he's one of the best kicks in the comp already. If you want to go and watch highlights of him, be my guest, because watch the Rising Star highlights. He laces out every single kick. It's unbelievable. Even his set shot from on the boundary, 40 out, straight through the middle. It was really awesome to watch. So it's definitely another reason to watch Sydney coming up. Braden Campbell bursting off halfback and Logan McDonald up forward, clunking them with I have to say, not the most appealing haircut of all time. It looks a bit weird. Like a really fringe nearly down to the eyebrows. But Errol Goulden, just absolute pinpoint accuracy was I was really surprised, especially from someone like of his sort of play type and stature. Thought it was more that sort of bash and crash pressure forward. But to lace out the players like he did, I thought it was unbelievable. So, I've definitely got him as my Rookie for the Week.
Yeah, fair enough. Well deserved. Yeah, as I mentioned before, I've gone with Matty Flynn. Was against Paul Hunter, so not sure if we can take too much from it, but had a pretty good game, as I mentioned
before. Super coach.
And was my ruck of the week. Yeah, exactly. I haven't gone with Gawn or Grundy, so anytime a rookie ruck gets up and about this week, I think I'll be yapping on about them. So, well played, Matty Flynn. Who's he got this week? Who's GWS playing off? Freo. So he actually has Lloyd Meek.
If
Sean Darcy's not back. So he could be looking at back-to-back rucks of the week for me. But all right, moving on to our week 2 preview. I actually frothed this part of the podcast for some reason. Really enjoyed just making predictions. So we've got our sure bet of the week. So something you think you're just going to put your house on. Upset of the week. So which underdogs do you like this week, basically? And then we're going to talk a little bit about game spreads, which betting lines are the most appealing for you this week. Obviously, don't. Just because we say something's appealing, don't go and put money on it unless you believe it. Yeah, exactly.
Don't chase your losses.
Exactly. I think you need to listen to that yourself, right? But who's your sure bet of the week?
Well, I just sort of got on. I looked at the weather forecast. It's going to be pouring for the Carlton Collingwood game. So I created a little 5-leg multi. Actually, I hope you don't mind me doing that. In case you want to get on it. So I've got. It's under 164.5 points. I don't see any team scoring above 80 or 90 points for the game, considering the conditions it's going to be, and considering they don't have the strongest forward lines, and because Collins' defense is obviously really good. So I'm going the unders there to go any time, because I do think he does sort of fire in the wet, and he'll be hungry after last week. I've got just a couple of 20 touches, so Walsh, starting Cripps, that's paying $3.50. So if you want to chuck maybe 10, 15 on that, make $30, $40, $45, that'll pay for a tank of petrol and you're golden. So $3.50. If you want to power play that, feel free to if you have one. But unfortunately, I've used all mine up on losses. So,
Yeah, my sure bet of the week's pretty dull, I'm going to be honest. But I was looking at the games. There's actually not too many certainties this week. Round one's throwing me off a few teams. I think Sydney to beat Adelaide. It's not great value. It's like $1.40. But
Yeah.
I think I'm not backing Adelaide to back up last week's performance. I think Sydney will be too good at home. But I'm going to be very, very safe here. I'm going to say Port Adelaide to beat Essendon.
Oh, you wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah, $1.14. So basically, everyone agrees with me.
Yeah.
But they played last year in round 17. Port won by 50 points. So, I just can't really see a world where Essendon win this now. Watch them go ahead and win it, and we can all laugh at me next week. But surely not. Surely Port will be. I think Port have kind of reached that level where they're pretty good at dispatching at the bad teams, which is something they struggled with back in like 2017, 2018. So I think they won't be slipping up here against Essendon. Upset of the week, mate. There's a couple that are interesting, I reckon. But what are you looking at?
Yeah, well, after last week, I can't pick a sure bet winner this week. And I'd have to say Port Adelaide's probably the safest. But the upset of the week, I've got maybe the Eagles over the Dogs. I think the Eagles are coming in. They were coming in over $2. I think obviously the Dogs got the much better, more superior midfield. I don't see Josh Bruce and all that replicating what they did. I know they were against the Collingwood defence, which is probably one of the best in the comp. But Eagles is nearly just as good. Barras, McGovern, Hearn rebounding off. And plus they've got the forward line, though, that Collingwood lacked. They've got Oscar Allen. They've got Liam Ryan, Darling and Kennedy. So I reckon the Eagles are definitely a sniff there. Might chuck a quick bet on them as well. But what have you got?
Just quickly on that one, I really like that call. I was looking at, because you know how they've got the big MCG, like hoodoo that everyone talks about. I was checking out how it translates to Docklands, and I think they've actually won their past 5 games at Marvel. So their troubles don't really seem to travel across the city. So I think that's a very good upset chance. My other one is GWS to beat Fremantle. I'm a big fan of Fremantle this year. I think they're going to be a good team, but I can't really get out of the mindset that GWS are a good team. I'm not really accepting that they're bad yet. So I was not surprised they were underdogs, but I was surprised it wasn't a little bit more even than it is. They're paying like $2.10, I think. They played last year, and GWS beat them by 38 points in Perth in front of 20,000 people. So
I believe that was with Josh Kelly going down at like half time as well. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was that game. So if he'll be playing a full game. So
beautiful. I didn't watch too much of the St Kilda game, so I'm sure you saw more of it than me, but I think to only lose to St Kilda by 8 points, I think is a pretty good effort. A lot of people are predicting to be a top 4 team, so I'm going GWS to beat Fremantle. Do you think that's an average call, or do you think that's a chance?
No, I definitely think that's a chance. I know last time they beat them by that much. They did have Kelly go down. They had Jake Riccardi come out and kick 4. They obviously don't have him or Cameron this week because I think Riccardi might still be injured. But no, I definitely like that call. It'll be a good test for the likes of Cherry and Brayshaw and Sarong in the midfield against Josh Kelly and Cornelio, and Jacob Hopper looks like taking the next step as well. So it'll be interesting to see how Freo respond to that. They will be in front of their home crowd, which will help. So it's almost like whether they can sort of test the bigger teams of the competition. I know GWS, I'm not accepting that they're a bad team either. But for Freo to take the next step, they've got to beat all these sides that are sort of equal with them. I've got them equal with them at the moment, roughly. So it'll be a good test of both teams, I think, this week. But I do like that call of GWS coming over the top of them.
Yeah, and then looking at the betting lines, I'm actually going to start one off that you're going to like. I never know the terminology for this, but I just say I just read it like a maths equation. I just go minus 10.5. I don't know if it's like under 10.5 or something, but St Kilda minus 10.5 to beat Melbourne. I was looking at it. They've won 6 of their last 7 at Marvel. Everyone knows they're a pretty elite Marvel team. I think last year they beat Richmond there. They beat one of the other big teams there. I can't really remember. And in those 6 victories that they've had at Marvel out of their last 7, all but one of them has covered this spread. So I think one of them they only won by 3 points. The rest were like 15 or more. So Melbourne, yes, I had them in my winners earlier, and I think they were good last week. Dispatched to Freo, which could have been a tough game, but yeah, I think St Kilda at Marvel to be only minus 10.5. I think that's very good value in my opinion. I'd probably say they should be like minus 25 or something personally, but that's just me.
Yeah.
Do you have any others you like?
I was liking North Melbourne's line at 18.5 against Gold Coast. I think North will put up a good fight. I'm not necessarily saying they'll win, but I do think they'll come close. I think we saw on the weekend Gold Coast was unable to sort of push West Coast right to the end. West Coast got a few at the end of the match. So I think North Melbourne will be able to run out the full game because they got toppled by Port Adelaide in that second quarter. But apart from that, they were never truly out of any quarter. They came out of the blocks firing and tested Port Adelaide early. So I've got North Melbourne's line at 18.5 there. So even if they lose, I'm going to hopefully be praying it's by like less than 3 goals. I like that one.
Yeah, that's a very good one. I've gone in a similar sort of fashion with my next one. Big underdog, but I've gone Hawthorn at plus 30.5 against Richmond. Look, this one's a big risk, I'll admit, because obviously Richmond, they're a gun team, but I've watched Alistair Clarkson's podcast on the Dylan Friends show, and I'm in love with the great man now. He seems like just a great bloke.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just doesn't seem like a Hawthorn thing to get blown out. I know that the last few years they've not been as good as they were 5 or 6 years ago. But I don't know, I just could see them not beating Richmond, but just maybe having a close, tight game. And hopefully some weather comes in and makes it a little bit more scrappy game. That might suit Hawthorn. But yeah, I just hope they don't get blown out, really. Just praying.
Yeah.
Not too much logic behind it, just backing in the Hawthorn grit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any others?
No, that's it. I think last year I chucked a lot of money on Richmond to beat Hawthorn in, I think it was around 3 or 4 clash. Because they did the bet easy thing where you sign up in an account, you get like $5 odds. You got $5 odds for Richmond, a lot too easy, free money. And then Hawthorn just came out and just destroyed them. So, I definitely wouldn't be surprised if that happens now because I thought that was just never going to happen last year. It did. So I don't want to be proven wrong twice. So I can see that happening. Of course I can. So I've got no others really. I'm looking at the fixture now. But yeah, I think that's all pretty set sail. I'm actually going to chuck probably a couple of multis on now. I like the sound of all these. So I think we've wrapped it up well there.
Yeah, and then obviously West Coast and GWS, their lines, I guess we can say we like them because we think they're going to win the game, but don't really need to go through that once again. But yeah, that's all we've got for this week. There might be a few alterations to the structure in the first few weeks till we find the perfect layout, but I think today went pretty well. I enjoyed just talking about it with you. And I'm looking forward to more footy in the upcoming weeks. Kind of keen for the cricket season to be over, to be honest, because I just want to sit down and watch the NRL and AFL on my weekends. Bit sick of this leaving at 9, getting home at 6 and missing most of the games. But for now, the highlights and mini matches do the trick. So we'll be back next week. And thanks for joining me, Rowey. Hope you've enjoyed your hour or so of talking rubbish. And
always a pleasure, mate. Loved it.
And thanks for listening and watching. Cheers.
Thank you.